John Kerry, what are you thinking? What did you mean when you said help is on the way? I am distraught, yet determined, and so I wrote a speech I'd like for you to say. My fellow Americans, I stand before you, firm in my positions and beliefs. On your behalf, we will not tolerate another coup d'etat by these election thieves. Rest assured, I got your back. I promise to protect us from attack, from without, from within. We cannot let them get away with this again.
This rally, this movement, this growing nationwide consciousness raising is the result of the deliberate, stealthy stealing of our democracy. And to demand justice, we are here to demand an investigation. We are here to demand that they hold off certifying this election until we have the final results.
Well, this, it's what I want to be doing. It's what I have to do, and I would die if I had to stop.
And we need you to do that. I mean, you're the person here doing this, so
well, thanks.
We can help fund
Great.
you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, well, I wasn't really that politically active until this year. I really wasn't. But it cost me a marriage. Cost me a marriage and a job. I've given everything to this.
Well, the kids are worth it.
Yeah. Some days I wake up and say, how did I get into this mess? I started attending the Joint Committee on Ballot Security hearings in February of this year. And truthfully, I never paid much attention to electronic voting and e-voting issues ever before. I was one of the Americans asleep at the wheel. So we went to the hearings, and they went on for weeks, and 1 or 2 days a week. So we would go to all of the hearings, and I would sit there and I would listen to the testimony, and everything I heard, the more I heard, of course, the more awake I became. And then I started doing my own research, and I would be up in the middle of the night with the hair crawling on the back of my neck, with the realization that our country was being stolen, with stolen elections. And so through the education of the hearings and my own independent research, it became the only thing that I do. It's all I focus on now, because I'm totally hooked, and it's an obsessive compulsive thing now. I can't not do it. I have to be doing this. I wish I could do other things. I miss my real life, but this is what I have to be doing right now.
Well, I think historically what's important today at Stephanie Tubbs-Jones, Representative Stephanie Tubbs-Jones, agreed from Ohio to challenge the Ohio electors, and that's significant. And I believe if she does that, that Senator Barbara Boxer will step forward. She has said that if anyone from Ohio challenges, she would seriously consider. So I think that's very important. I think also what you're seeing there today looks like the beginning of a movement to end this secret privatization of voting, where these corporations control our votes, and you've got 50 different state systems, and within the states like Ohio, every county, 88 different counties have their own system. So I think what you saw today was the birth of a movement, and we do actually have the poll logs, which show that 221 people less signed in than the actual votes assigned. Okay, if you need anything, give me a call. And I thought, well, we're going to have a public hearing. And so I've never conducted a public hearing before. I hadn't been a lawyer a year for that matter. I said, we're going to have a public hearing. Didn't think anyone would show up to any great extent. We only had, by the time we got to church, it was about Tuesday. Didn't have time to promote it. So on that Saturday, as we're driving to the event, I'm thinking, okay, if we get 50 people, that's a pretty good turnout. We counted over 500 that had come in throughout the day. Standing room only, so 250 to 300 people. A lot of the growing independent video makers, filmmakers, public access, Pacifica, broadcasted. So, as people were listening to this on radio, and we got over 60 people signed sworn affidavits, or about 34 people in sworn testimony with a court reporter. So we had planned one for 2 days later, thinking maybe nobody would show up. We wanted it at the Board of Election, but it ended up at the courthouse. And we think, well, who's going to show up now? I mean, we've exhausted the amount of people. It seats 250 people. We had standing room only again. John Conyers' office was contacted sort of initially because we were thinking about filing complaints with the Civil Rights Commission. So he was a few senators we were going to talk to see how to proceed. And then it sort of got out of control for us. And Representative Conyers contacted us. One of his staff members, Perry Applebaum, called us, and we started getting all these calls from the Judiciary Committee. And they said, well, haven't you seen our website? And I said, no. And they go, well, we've been posting your stuff, freepress.org. I'm thinking, well, this is interesting. Our stuff's being... of course, we were one of the few newspapers in the world, particularly in the United States, that was covering it. None of the mainstream were. A lot of the web blogs were covering it, and perhaps, but mainly it was the web. So the Columbus Free Press, we put out an issue, We Do Not Concede, laying out this case of what happened on Election Day. But we posted it online at freepress.org, and we find now it's linked to the U.S. Congress and the ranking member, the distinguished Representative John Conyers. And they also said, can we have your testimony? I saw this as a good sign. So we got the testimony. At the time, we didn't have any money, right? I had pledged money out of my own pocket. So we were about $3,000 in debt through the Free Press to gather this information. But then we got pledges of money. Air America picked it up and began to raise money for us. And I'm thinking, so instead of thinking, well, it was a worthy cause, it cost $3,000, but I've documented this for history, suddenly we could hire lawyers. Suddenly we could do, through the Free Press, election protection, do massive investigations, journalistic investigations. So all of that, and then we sent them the transcripts electronically. They liked what they saw, and they said, can you come in for a briefing of the minority, the Democrats, on the Judiciary Committee and some other congressmen who want to hear more. So, in about a week's time, we went from being an obscure, small, freepress.org group of activists in Columbus, Ohio, to testifying, live on C-SPAN and having people, from all over the nations hear and see the evidence that we had.
If people were aware, if the mass of people in this country knew what is going on, they would be up in arms. They would be calling their senators and their congresspeople, and they would be flying to Washington, D.C., and they would be lobbying and legislating, and they would be taking action, because what is happening is appalling and egregious. And why aren't they doing this? Why haven't they heard? The mass media is ignoring this issue. The mass media has a blackout primarily on this issue. There are a few exceptions. Keith Olbermann is doing a wonderful job on MSNBC. But mass media generally is not touching this issue. And it's a huge issue. It's huge. This goes to the very core of our country. It goes to the very basis of our democracy. And I think it scares a lot of people to death.
Well, one of the real problems here has been, people say, well, why isn't the media covering this? And why isn't the Democratic Party fighting this? Why isn't Senator Kerry fighting this? And these are all good questions. And it puts those in the public interest community, the citizens who are coming forward and saying, and the experts who are coming forward and saying this is a fraudulent election with a different result than what's been reported, it puts us in a rather awkward position. We're being called, conspiracy theorists, when in fact the real conspiracy theorists are those who are saying the exit polls are all wrong. There's no evidence to support that. In contrast, the reported result, there's plenty of evidence to suggest, or not just suggest, to prove that the reported result is erroneous.
The other thing that is apparent fraud in this whole election are the exit polls. And the exit polls were enough in the Ukraine to overturn the election, and I fail to understand why the exit polls alone aren't enough to swing the results and to require a revote in Ohio. Warren Matofsky is the premier exit poll expert in the world, and he's called upon to do exit polls all over the world to ensure fair elections. And anytime his results deviate past the normal deviation points in any other country, they know that there has been a fraudulent election. And the results in Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Florida were way beyond normal standard deviations on exit polling, whereas most of the other states in the country, they were fairly consistent. Why those three battleground states? The primary battleground states of the 2004 election? Raises issues.
So I think, well, I'm just going to give you some of my personal impressions. Possibly Senator Kerry and the Democratic Party, who fought so hard in this election, are shell-shocked. The dramatic disparity in the reported result caused them to think they really lost. And they're trying to recover from that.
Did they lose, in your opinion?
No, they didn't lose. And I had a brief conversation with Senator Kerry on the telephone through the courtesies of Reverend Jackson. And when I said, the evidence we have shows you won, not just Ohio, you won the national popular vote. I don't know if I was the first one to tell him or not, but you'd think that he, saw the exit polls, saw the fact that he called the election. CNN called the election in favor of Senator Kerry in Ohio.
What did he say? What was his response?
He didn't really respond.
So what do you say to people that say, just get over it, will you? Get over it.
Well, again, what are they asking us to get over? Democracy? Are they asking us to allow people to wait in line up to 7 hours in Columbus, up to 12 hours at Kenyon College? Are they asking us for Jim Crow treatment where blacks have to wait 3 hours on average to vote and white people get to vote in 30 minutes? What is it exactly I'm supposed to get over? Watching handicapped people wheel away because there were no ramps for them? Watching a woman on chemotherapy faint after waiting 2.5 hours and not be able to vote, and watch her walk off with her cane, with a pale look on her face? I'm supposed to get over that? I don't think so. What they need to get over is their contempt for democracy. What they need to get over is the thuggery which intimidates American citizens not to vote. What they need to get over is a mindset that would easily be manipulated by theo-fascists and militarists and corporatists. I'm not getting over it, but as I've said before, we're not going to get over it, but we shall overcome. And again, I'm inspired by the words of Lincoln, that government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from this earth. I'm not getting over it till every American has the same voting right throughout the nation. We vote the same way on the same machines, and it's transparent. It's not done by secret private companies that are the major donors of the president, because that's the only way I believe George Bush has won in the year 2000 and 2004. His private friends who secretly count our votes. That's not democracy. That's a sham.
But I'm always grateful to people like you who are covering this issue and who care and who take the time to document it, because it's really important. And I wish that there were more media involved, but what you do is really important. So thanks.
Well, as you know, there's a lot of moms involved in this.
Yes,
You're
there
a mom.
are. I am a mom.
What would you say to the other moms?
I would say that if you have kids like mine that are 15 and 13 and 5, that you better be concerned about a draft. And that's one of the huge, huge fears of the administration that's in place now, that they're warmongers. And they had no business going into Iraq, and they have no business with their international agenda. And it's really unfortunate that I think it's apparent that a draft is inevitable. And my kids aren't going to go. My kids aren't going to go until the congresspeople and the senators' kids go first. The ones who vote to go to war, my kids will go after their kids go, but not before.
There is a press statement as of right now on the issue in our documentary.
Oh no, I don't know if I'm allowed to.
Hallway here?
Yeah, I don't think so. Okay.
Just focus on Feinstein because we were just focusing more on Boxer. Yeah. But I'm really glad because she can't be let off the hook that easily.
Yeah, the aide for Boxer kept saying, "Have you been to Feinstein yet?" They said, "We're going to see her tomorrow." You know, but a lot of people just didn't talk about.
Yesterday?
Yeah, we saw Tom Bohegan.
Is that he's her chief of staff?
For California, yeah.
Oh,
wonderful. State director.
And what did he say?
He said, it's 50-50. He's definitely thinks she might do it, but, first she was wanting to see an Ohio
right now
congresswoman,
that's happened.
And that's happened.
Yeah.
And she also talked to Stephanie Tubbs Jones yesterday.
Good.
And
Barbara did?
Yeah.
Good. Oh, all right. Good.
He didn't know the outcome of that, but we know what Stephanie said.
Yeah, we did.
Do it off the dime.
Yeah.
You are not a fool if you stand up and do something.
That's right. And Barbara was kind of apologetic about not having done it before when people confronted her about it. Of not having done it last
2000.
time.
As she should be.
Yeah. So she said, it was just because Gore asked me not to, and I didn't know all the facts, and
That's what they all said.
I won't let this happen again.
Right.
If there's real fraud, I'm going to stand up and do it.
Right. That's what they said. Boy, they got away with that once. Now, this time,
that's right.
We're going to see.
That the vote in Ohio was actually won by John Kerry, and that therefore the Ohio delegation to the Electoral College for Bush should not be seated, but rather the delegation from Ohio for John Kerry should be seated, and that therefore John Kerry should be the next President of the United States. But at the very least, that our votes deserve to be counted and deserve to be protected. All of us as American citizens have their right, and there's no one who says that better than Reverend Bill Moss of Columbus, Ohio.
Never have we experienced anything like what we experienced and witnessed on Election Day 2004. My wife and I went to the polls at 10 o'clock in the morning, thinking that we would have a chance, as we normally do, of getting in to vote within a 20-minute, a reasonable period of time, and getting out. The lines were so long at that time, it was raining all day, and it was cold, that we decided, along with 3 of our children who had gone to vote as well, that we would leave and come back around 3 o'clock, because it had been our experience that at that hour, if there were lines in the morning, they would have subsided by 3 p.m. We did get back at 3, about 10 minutes till. The lines were longer. We finally got to vote, finish our voting at 6:30 in the evening. We know that this happened all over the city in predominantly black areas, which traditionally vote overwhelmingly Democratic. Our effort here today, and in this process, is to bring the truth before the American people, to bring the truth before the Congress, to bring the truth so that the truth will help to keep us free. Because we believe indeed that it is our freedom and constitutional democracy which is at stake.
And Bill has come today, as we said, from Columbus with a busload of people whose voting rights were abused, who were not allowed to vote, whose votes were discarded and left uncounted by a Secretary of State with a clear conflict of interest. Now, the core of our legal team is here with us today. Let me introduce them. Pete Pekarsky, Robert Petrakis, and Susan Stewart. If you would all come forward. They will introduce to you the basic elements of this landmark lawsuit, Moss v. Bush.
The proof, as you will see, goes beyond clear and convincing evidence to the level of beyond reasonable doubt. Warren Matofsky, the father of the exit poll, with 37 years of experience, was called upon to conduct an exit poll for the national election pool in connection with our election on November 2nd, 2004. The purported actual results, in terms of both the national popular vote and in Ohio, were so far from the Matofsky exit poll results that anywhere else on the face of the planet, the people would know they were victims of election fraud. The laws of statistics do not change when you cross the United States border. In Ohio, the exit polls predicted that Kerry would win 52.1% of the Ohio vote, while the certified results show him winning 48.7%. Given the exit poll results, and assuming proper poll methodology and an honest vote count, there is less than 1 chance in 1,000 that the certified outcome in Ohio would occur. Some of these numbers are on this chart. The 52.1%, which is also on the charts that you have, is in the center. That's the center line of the poll, or the center line of the distribution curve here. Certified result is over here, 48. It's 48.7%. We all know about polls. There's a margin of error. This is way outside the margin of error. That's outside that interval. There is less than 1 chance in 959,000 that Kerry would have received only 48.1% of the national popular vote. There was no mandate. That 3.5 million votes you're hearing about is fiction. There was no mandate because the people decided at the polls on Election Day that John Kerry actually won the election.
The vote is the underpinnings of the democracy. You cannot talk about democracy unless you understand that the vote is what keeps the democracy. If in fact we do not protect the vote, the right to vote, to make sure that every vote is counted, we cannot claim we're the leaders of democracy. It is absolutely outrageous that you can get a printout for a lottery ticket and you have machines that tell you they can't give you a paper trail on a vote. It is absolutely outrageous that in the richest country in the world, with the most sophisticated technology, that we can't get this mess right. And so, you're going to have to do what you're doing. You're going to have to keep on doing what you're doing. I'm going to keep on doing what I must do to protect this democracy. We have got to stop letting the ultra-right and the Bush administration and all of those who have conspired to make sure that he stays in the White House, we've got to stop letting them intimidate us. They will accuse us of being unpatriotic. But I don't see any right-wing zealots out in the rain today to protect the democracy. We have the progressive leadership of this nation who have come out to say, no matter what it takes, no matter how long it takes, no matter what we have to do, we're going to stand up for democracy, we're going to fight for the vote, and we're going to be in George Bush's face. Thank you very much.
The most dangerous threat to democracy is the mistaken belief that we have one in this country. We need not only to ensure that every vote is counted and that you count every vote, but we need publicly funded elections to get corporate money out of politics to begin with. We've got to have universal voting standards so that you don't allow, and it becomes against the law. We need instant runoff voting and proportional representation like the rest of the world does in order to ensure political diversity. And we've got a systemic problem with elections, and all of these people are coming together, and you've got young people, people of color, you've got progressive whites, you've got greens, you've got a lot of different people who, we are in the early stages of the next generation voting rights movement in this country. I really believe that.
Keep hope alive! Keep hope alive! A little light will do you. We are that little light. This year, 40 years ago, with the moral leadership of Dr. King and rigorous demonstrations, and the legislative leadership of Lyndon Johnson, we got the right to vote in August of 1965. But lest we forget, an independent, progressive political action went outside of the system, went on down to Selma, Alabama. In many ways as remote as Warren County in Ohio, of Butler, Claremont. And in that remote place, it was the blood of the martyrs. The blood of Viola Luizzo, an Italian-American mother from Detroit. The blood of Swanner Goodman trained the two Jews and the black. The blood of Jimmy Lee Jackson. The horses kicking, the dogs biting on Edmund Pettus Bridge that Sunday afternoon. The blood spill that Sunday changed the climate for America, changed the debate. Lyndon Johnson wrote over, he used ink, the right over blood, the right to vote. It was the remnant that gained the right to vote in 65. The remnant must protect the right to vote in year 2005 and beyond. In many ways, today, real leadership is tested. Dr. King will often say leadership is tested, Brother Moss, by how they act, vote, or behave in times of adversity. First fact is, some senators during this election, during this seasonal break, have gone to Ukraine to investigate that election. They've gone to Iraq. But not one has gone to Columbus, Ohio. Not one. And they speak, each of them, in uninformed generalities. At best today, Senator Boxer is going to contest there'll be a debate on the House side, a debate on the Senate side. But it's all because of you who would not surrender. Today, Senator Kerry ran his strong race to November, but he surrendered in overtime. This is an overtime battle. Today he is in Baghdad. We need him today in Washington. Those who cannot lead today cannot lead in 2006 or 2008. This is the moment of truth. This land is our land. This democracy is our democracy. Stand for it. Fight for it. Bleed for it. Not just Iraq, not just Afghanistan, but Columbus and Cleveland and Cincinnati and Warren County and Butler County and Athens, Ohio. This land is our land. For the right to vote, we marched too much. We bled too profusely. We died too young for the martyrs, for King. Surely they smile today. We march holding high the beacon of liberty and hope This land is our land. March on. Stand tall. We will not surrender. 2005, we debate. 2006, we take back the Senate. 2008, we reclaim the White House. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. I love you. God bless you.
Vote Ohio! Free vote Ohio! Free vote Ohio!
Count all the votes. Count all the votes. Count all of 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 the votes.
We're live on the Laura Flanders Show from San Francisco. Yes, well, Barbara Boxer has issued an official letter saying that she will rise up under the 1887 law and ask for scrutiny of the seating of the Ohio electors. And this is a huge development. This story could not have been broken. This story could not have happened without Talk Radio, Air America, and the internet, freepress.org. We got no help from the major media, but your radio network and our website really put this forward. We made the connection to Jesse Jackson. He went to John Conyers, excuse me, and John Conyers and the Black Caucus, and now we believe it's joined by Dennis Kucinich, has said they will challenge the vote on the seat on the floor of the Congress, and Barbara Boxer has come forward as the senator who will carry the challenge forward.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you all for being here. For most of us in the Senate and the House, we have spent our lives fighting for things we believe in, always fighting to make our nation better. We have fought for social justice. We have fought for economic justice. We have fought for environmental justice. We have fought for criminal justice. Now we must add a new fight. The fight for electoral justice.
Mr. President, the certificate of the electoral vote of the well-known and great state of Ohio seems to be regular in form and authentic. It appears therefrom that George W. Bush of the state of Texas received 20 votes for President. Dick Cheney for the state of Wyoming received 20 votes for Vice President.
For what purpose does the member from Ohio rise?
I, Stephanie Tubbs Jones, a representative from the state of Ohio, and Senator Barbara Boxer, a senator from California, have objected to the counting of the electoral votes of the state of Ohio on the ground that they were not, under all the known circumstances, regularly given.
Today's objection is not about an individual, but our institutions. It's not about Republicans, but our republic. It's not about Democrats, but our democracy. It's not about an election result, but about an election system that's broken and needs to be fixed.
Oakland.
I don't know. I think she.
I've seen people are doing that.
Right there.
It means the world that she stood up for democracy. I mean, it's not even, you know, I mean...
The shortest person in the Senate stood tall.
Where are you from?
How about that?
Is she the shortest, the biggest joke in the world? She
well, you know, Hitler got that award, too.
But good, then there's a comparison.
And Stalin.
The man of the year this meeting. She just said thank you, and she said look forward to election reform. Is everyone here from California? Yay!
California! Yeah, the left coast.
They're locking his ran away by the evidence from light of day, while those responsible are free. Can't have an election, not count the vote. Top it with the blessed Supreme Court. Call this land a democracy. My people are rising. My people are rising. My people are rising.
This to me is democracy in action, and I feel ecstatic.
You ask me how I feel, I'll say to you what I said in an earlier speech.
As James Brown, the godfather of soul, used to say, sings the song, I feel good, so good, because I got you. And that you includes you on this press team and the people to whom we speak.
Thank you so much.
God bless your heart.
We should show by our thoughts, our words, and our deeds that unity is what our country now needs. So, let's all get together, let bitterness pass. I'll hug your elephant, you kiss my ass. So thank you. I'm glad we're all here to let everybody know we're not going to sit down. We're not going to shut up. We're not going away. We will be here. We will be fighting. We will be raising our voices until our votes count. We will be raising our voices until they can be heard when we go to polling places. We will be raising our voices until all African American citizens have the right to vote. Where did our country go? Where is the United States of America, where democracy is the way that we rule this country? What happened to that? And I am here to thank Barbara Boxer for having balls.
I have been an activist most of my life, actually. I feel like I've been preparing for this all my life, and here we are.
Right.
You know?
So where do you go now? I mean, after, Bush is probably going to get inaugurated. Right?
Well, we don't know what's going to happen. I'm open to surprises all the time, so I'm not saying anything's a done deal yet. We'll see.
Okay.
Maybe unlikely, but, I'm still holding out till January 20th. Yes, impeachment is a very beautiful word. Thank you, Megan.
So is
that's
trial
right.
for war crimes.
Yeah. Trial for war crimes. That's right.
International trial.
We keep remembering that Nixon was inaugurated for a second term, and then a year and a half later he was out of there. So we fully expect that something along those lines will happen if he is indeed inaugurated on January 20th. That he won't last another 4 years. We're convinced of that.
My name's Clint Curtis, and I'm the programmer that Tom Feeney asked to write the program that flips the vote. Back in September of 2000, I was working in a company called Yang Enterprises in Oviedo, Florida, and President Congressman Feeney was then the Speaker of the Florida House, our registered lobbyist, and our corporate attorney. And he would basically come in and feed us contracts. My role was to kind of sit in the back of the room and give him any sort of technical advice on what we could do, what we couldn't do, that sort of thing. In the beginning of these sessions, September-ish of 2000, Mr. Feeney came in and asked if we could build a basically vote fraud prototype, which would flip the vote from whoever was winning to whoever the person flipping the vote wanted to win. And yeah, I know. And he was specific. He wanted to run on a Windows platform. He wanted so no third-party element had to come in, no hardware, no keyboards had to be brought in. You didn't have to sit across the street. You could just sit on the screen and do it right there. And he basically wanted it so that even if you looked at the source code, you couldn't see the fraud. And that part I couldn't do, which I told him right at the meeting that if you see the source code or you get a receipt, then you're going to see the fraud. So you don't have to worry about that sort of thing. But Mrs. Yang said, we'll go ahead and build you the prototype. So I built the prototype. It's easy. It takes 15 minutes. It's nothing. And then I wrote up the report showing them how you would keep people, because I assumed that, you evil Democrats were trying to do this to them, and they wanted to find out what you were going to do. So I wrote up the report, handed it to her, and said, here's the report, and here's what you look for to make sure that this isn't being done. And she says, you don't understand. We have to hide the manipulation in the source code because this is needed to flip the vote in South Florida. And, of course, I told her that not only you can't hide the manipulation, you shouldn't hide the manipulation. The better question is, why isn't the source code reviewed and why isn't there receipt? Because at that point, I knew they couldn't use the program because no one would be stupid enough to let someone put source code on a machine without reviewing it and then not even give you a receipt on what you voted for. I mean, who would do that, right? Doesn't even make sense on the surface. So that's basically my story.
Thank you! Thank you for telling your story!
We now have evidence across the country of voter intimidation, vote machine tampering, corrupt software, voter prevention, registration prevention, pre-punched cards, destruction of voter records, laundering payments for government contractors through agencies like NASA, what Clint Curtis talked to you about.
Switching machines.
Switching machines, theft of absentee ballots, especially in Florida, and threats made, personal threats made to the safety of Democratic Party election officials and vote monitors across the country. Now, in the South, in the 1960s, that occurred. It was done by the Ku Klux Klan. The Department of Justice and the FBI went to the South and prosecuted people for violating the Voter Rights Act of 1965. It's 2005. The Voter Rights Act is now 40 years old. Let the Department of Justice and FBI, the spirit of the Voting Rights Act, let them prosecute the people who were responsible for this massive vote fraud, voter intimidation across the United States.
But unlike 2001, this time there was a senator who signed the complaint, Senator Barbara Boxer from California, and she expressed regret that she didn't do the same thing in 2001. The results were, unfortunately, the results were the same. Instead of casting aside Ohio's very questionable electors for George Bush, who were there based on fraud and illegal activities, the Senate and the House voted overwhelmingly to accept the electors and certify the election of November 2nd, 2004, even though there were problems with the vote count, not only in Ohio, but also, once again, in Florida, in New Mexico, in Nevada, in North Carolina. And I would suggest that vote fraud and vote scamming took place in all 50 states, and that is what led ultimately to George Bush's unbelievable 3.5 million plurality in the popular vote. These folks in Columbus have long since, several years ago, been tracking the people who have been put on the Ohio Supreme Court. And the Republican majority on that court right now, there's only 2 Democrats. It's a 7-member court. 5 of these individuals are Republicans. They are all there based on the fact that Enron lobbied so successfully to have these people not only nominated but approved by the Ohio legislature to sit on the court. Now we see the results of that the court did not entertain any of the suits brought before it to have Ohio's votes either switched to carry or discarded completely.
So was this a remarkable foresight on the part of Kenley and Enron that Ohio was going to be the key swing state?
Oh, absolutely. When you look at Ken Blackwell, the Ohio Secretary of State's meteoric career rise from an official in the Housing and Urban Development Department, then he goes to become mayor of Cincinnati, then he shoots up to be Secretary of State. Obviously, if he follows the Katherine Harris line, he'll become a member of the House of Representatives. But yes, I think there was tremendous foresight. The people who are looking into the future are looking at, you've got to pack the Ohio Supreme Court. You have to have one of your people as Secretary of State. It just so helps that you have a Taft as governor of Ohio, an old line Republican family, and they're not going to say anything about this type of voter fraud. But there are plenty of old Republicans, mainstream Republicans, those moderate Republicans who saw what was going on with the Ohio Supreme Court and complained to their Democratic colleagues about it. So this is how they operate, and the master manipulator, of course, in all this is Karl Rove, who goes back to the days of the dirty tricks of Donald Segretti and the Nixon campaign. He was so successful in the '72 campaign as a young college-age person in Texas with the Texas College Republicans that his involvement in dirty tricks came to the light of one George H.W. Bush, who said, hey, I think I'd like to have you working for the Republican National Committee, which is what eventually did happen with Karl Rove, and as they say, the rest was history. When Karl Rove stole a second presidential election, the major media referred to him as a genius. The man's no genius. He's a criminal. And if Karl Rove did in business as he did in the election, there would be several counts brought against him for violating the federal RICO statutes, Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act. And the days of Karl Rove engineering elections with the help of a select few private companies, they're not just private companies. These companies, if you look at their interlocking directorships, are run by extremely right-wing, fundamentalist Christian individuals. Let me first talk about this outfit, ES&S. It's owned by the McCarthy Group. One of the individuals, one of the former principals of ES&S is a Republican senator from Nebraska, Chuck Hagel, who's now calling for trying to encourage the youth to turn out to vote. Well, what good is that when you're not going to count their votes anyway, Senator Hagel? But one of the biggest bankrollers of ES&S is a family called the Amundsen family. They're out here in California. One of the principal Amundsens is Howard Amundsen. And it's interesting to see who some of Howard's friends are with a group called the Council for National Policy. Pat Robertson, Richard Viguerie, the guy that came up with direct mail for the Republicans, Ralph Reed, Tom DeLay, Jerry Falwell, one of my favorites, Bob Jones, another one, Grover Norquist, who's, of course, a very, very close colleague of Karl Rove, Oliver North, Don Wildman, and, last but not least, Carolyn Hunt, who was one of the owners of a company that was the predecessor to ES&S, Business Records of Texas. And then, of course, our favorite company, Diebold. Headed up by Wally Odell, big Bush contributor, close to Ken Blackwell, Secretary of State of Ohio. And one of his principals is Bob Urosevich, whose brother is over at ES&S. It's also interesting, we heard about the global election systems which Diebold purchased. They had a principal with that particular company named Jeffrey Dean. Jeffrey Dean was convicted for criminal activity. God, you'll never guess for what. Fraud and computer tampering.
For our would-be dictator George Bush is just something that we have to keep fighting and fighting and fighting. And we are at the brink of a dictatorship in this country. We have had 200 years of relative calm, peaceful democracy in most of the country. Certainly wasn't the case in the South. And what we've gotten in Ohio is a real taste of Jim Crow. We've seen in Ohio what was done in the South all those years to black people, and now they did it in the North, not only to black people but also to students and the elderly and so on. And it's shocking to see the Democratic Party has completely rolled over on this, but it's very encouraging to see that people from the grassroots are not lying down and letting our democracy die without a fight. And so that's what we're basically about. And having you here filming this and having us writing on the internet, having talk radio be available, that's what's kept us alive. And people who are watching this have to remember that democracy has to be fought for. And this is a time that grows people's souls. And it's a moment where we really are being tested about our commitment to democracy, to nonviolence, to peace in the world, and to America's place in the world, whatever that may be. And that's what we have to really keep conscious of.
Because we're Californians and we love Boxer, and we're so grateful.
We support the Boxer Rebellion all the way.
Our representative was the one with the cojones to stand up.
That's right. The women are the ones with the cojones.
Woo! That's right.
No offense. You have
California Women for Freedom.
In the honorary.
That's right. I'm angry at Kerry. I don't know how I'm going to get back from there. I'm angry at the Democratic Party. I'm not sure what they are going to do to win me back. I'm not ready to go third party, but get up, stand up, wake up. It's inexcusable, and yeah, I'm still mad. I'm actually not celebrating yet. I'm still mad. That's how I feel.
Rick?
I'm proud to be here, and our work is just started.
That's right.
Great.
Oh, I'm elated, actually. It's just turning out so much better than we'd even hoped for, having Boxer and all these other senators stand up to object today.
Amen.
I don't know. I've been doing this kind of thing for so long, and I just get used to always being, in the uphill battle and having things not turn out the way we would like them to. And so today, when we got such fabulous news, and here we are in the middle of Washington, D.C., and we're standing together with all these people from all over the country, all different kinds of people, and we're just, a few feet away from Jesse Jackson with all his energy and just pumping us full of energy. I just have never felt so emotional in all my life, practically, about a political thing. I've been crying and celebrating all day. I'm so happy to be here and with all of you. I'm elated.
You said you were going to be part of the crisis.
Part of the crisis.
Here she
And
is.
fortunately for Rachel, leading the way, we're here and part of the crisis. I guess it was so moving for me too, that hearing everyone and hearing Jesse Jackson today was big. I think when it's really dark, a little light will do ya. Was a good thing to hear. And I guess just walking here on the march from the White House, the Black House, to the Capitol, I really was seeing, this is how it works. I mean, the people get rolling and they stay rolling, and things happen. But it really highlighted for me the breakdown of the press and the role that they're supposed to be playing right now, because they should be in a dialogue with our action and sort of making way for the truth to help the movement along. So I think that our next move is to really turn up the heat on the press now that these senators have given them the cover they need to begin looking at this story. They've got the reporters and the resources to bring it to light. So that's next.
All right.
I also want to make it clear how grateful we are to people like Harvey Wasserman and Maxine Waters, who stood up last time and stood up so eloquently again today, Jesse and Reverend Moss and his wife, and all the folks that have been vigilant since November 2nd and never gave up the fight. Thank you.
That's right.
You say it.
Truth will set you free.
Right.
They were so dumb to commit fraud in Harvey Wasserman's hometown that they didn't know what they were up against. I mean, this guy is not going to stop. Yeah, he and Bob Fritakis and these other people from Columbus, Susan Truitt.
Right on.
I mean, they had no idea what they were up against. These people are just powerful and awesome, and they're bright lights in this whole thing, and they're not going to stop. I just feel like, I'm just behind them all the way, man. There's no holding back now. Oh, good.
God bless you, man. That's so great.
I hope so. We'll see.
Did they call you or did you call them?
Well, we love you so much. I love you too.
Are they giving up?
See you guys.
Bye.
Samuel Adams and Patrick Henry. Don't you think they'd do the same if they were here? We've gone too far. We gotta stop them. This experiment in democracy is dead. Don't despair. I'm on the case. I got lawyers all over the place. So bring it on. I'll take a stand, because I told you I'm a fighting man. John Kerry What are you doing about this? What did you mean when you said help is on the way? John Kerry, I implore you, this urgent matter cannot wait another day. Ohio cannot wait another day.